Hi guys, Cheap Kit Goon here. So the Battle of Mount Balcar, absolutely amazing event. I was there, some of my friends were there. You can check out my guy Ruski Operator, his channel, for his perspective of the operation. It should be out pretty soon. So, what went well and what didn't? There's a lot of good things to take away from the event, things learned, lessons, a lot of takeaways. And I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. Got some written down on paper here. Hopefully this video won't be long and boring. So first off, if you were there, you know this AO was very, very taxing on the body. And from what I've heard from experienced people who were there, people who said it was like their 17th milsim west. So it definitely showed me quite a few things, especially with this being my first event. So, number one, don't overpack, even in small things. And maybe your concern isn't the weight of your pack necessarily. Maybe you can deal with the weight, even if you have overpacked. But maybe necessarily just the space in your rucksack that certain items take up. And, you can only strip down your rucksack so much to the bare minimum. You always need to bring rain gear, no matter what. So don't strip that. Don't try to cheap out on that, too. Because if it rains and you don't have a poncho, a tarp, you're going to be real miserable. There are things you don't need necessarily. For example, I brought a towel. Being like a guy, used to be in Boy Scouts, just random first aid things come to mind, like a towel, and, things you would bring on a camping trip. Well, you don't I'm going to put this frankly, you're not going to need to dry off at any point in the event. If there's some serious first aid concern, chances are you'll be able to deal with it until the admin has to do something about it. When I say you're not going to need to dry off, I mean your mindset is not going to be in that comfort zone. You're going to be in straight survival mode. When you are wearing a t-shirt, a field jacket, or a uniform, and a rig over that, and you're to the level of sweat where your rig is soaked with sweat, your pouches are dripping water, then you are not concerned about drying off. Your concern at that point is drinking as much water as possible. And towels can take up quite a lot of space, so you're not going to need that. Just an example, there's probably other things I could say. So other comfort items, things like that, you're not going to be concerned about comfort. After a certain point in the event, you're concerned about drinking enough water, eating enough protein, and just getting by, and occasionally getting sleep. That's a big one. You're not going to get a lot of sleep at the event. So another thing with regards to packing is it might not be possible for every rucking setup, especially the one I had at the event. I used I believe it was a green Osprey rucksack. For hiking backpacks like these, this might not be possible, but try to the best of your ability to make sure your sleeping system, your extra clothes, and your food have the same amount of accessibility. You may think, oh, I'm going to get to camp, I'm going to get my food out first, then my sleep system, and then my clothes. No, it doesn't work like that. You're going to set your shit down, and you're going to get whatever you need. It doesn't matter what it is. You're going to need something at some point. Don't stack up your stuff. If you can't avoid it, then you got to do what you got to do. But try not to stack up your things, because you're going to have to be digging through them at 2 in the morning, trying to get ready for an engagement. You can't use your flashlight because it'll give away your position to enemy players with nods. But make sure all of those 3 categories have the same amount of accessibility in your rucksack. It will save you a lot of time. Next milsim west, I'm going to be bringing a Alice pack with several different pouches on it, with large pockets and things, so that'll hopefully help me in that endeavor. Pack light so you can fill as much space and weight with as much water as you can get. I brought about 2 liters and a canteen, and a canteen would be on my webbing gear, and the 2 liters were in my rucksack. Well, I went through those 2 liters probably within 3 hours ish. So the amount of exercise that you're actually doing, you're going to be exerting so much water, so much energy, that you are going to need as much water as possible. Try to get those things that promote storage of as much water as possible. Water bladders, big water bottles, anything you can get your hands on. So, next thing, train with your gear beforehand. I did this as much as I could, very much to my advantage. And I saw a lot of people drop out of the event because they didn't do this. And it was a big problem because they weren't ready for this AO. And, to give them the benefit of the doubt, it was a very, very difficult AO even for experienced players. But they still dropped out. So, train with your gear, know what you're getting into. Because if you can't carry your own load, up and down like the first hill of the event, then you're gonna have some problems. I saw a guy, he couldn't make it up the first hill after we stepped off at 9 o'clock. Shoot, what is it at military time, so I don't look like an idiot. Shit. Anyways, guy couldn't make it up the first hill. He was carrying 1,000 rounds of blank fire ammunition. You need to know what you're carrying, and you need to carry only what you know you can take. And especially off-trail hiking, absolutely no joke. Loose rocks, loose sticks, things like that. Try to train as much as possible, even if it means taking your ruck and your water and your gear and going up and down your basement steps. Do something that'll simulate tough, very steep terrain. And if you can do that as much as possible, then chances are you can probably make it through the AO. Work your shoulders, work your legs, and work your cardio. That's all I can really say about that. So, know that Milsim West is a very physically demanding sport. It's a vacation, it's a fun hobby, but physically it isn't a joke. So if you're someone like me and you tried to get the full experience at the event, I ended up going on almost any daytime operation I could. So after the event, that left me almost unable to walk. So next thing is, know your assault gear adds on extra weight, and you're going to weigh more with your full ruck and kit on than just your rucksack alone. Don't forget the weight of the water too, because that adds on a ton of extra weight. So let's see. In regards to combat, so I'm not an expert by any means. This was my first event. I showed up to the event looking like a surplus store Call of Duty ghost, for pores. But here I am lecturing you on what I think I learned. First thing is adjust your hop up and know how to do it well. Know what weight BBs you're going to prefer. Try to test it out beforehand. In this event, there's a variety of different BB weights passed down through the supply chains. I didn't adjust my hop up well. I also didn't really care what weight BB, because I'm not as experienced as other guys who, find it to be a big deal. And it is a big deal because overall it does drastically affect the accuracy of your gun. So, however, I did recognize that even though I couldn't hit anything, I did realize I could make myself useful and administer buddy aid. So I tried my best to rush out and put a TQ on guys, down teammates. That got me killed a lot. Was it useful? Yes. But many times it got me killed. A few lessons that I learned through that. So look around before you move and look very, very closely. Know absolutely where your enemy is and what direction before you move. You may find good cover, but you have to realize that cover means absolutely nothing if the enemy is to the wrong angle. He can still mow you down. You move to that cover and you think the enemy's in one spot, but he's actually over here, and he shoots you, and boom, you go down, and everything you're doing completely useless. And now you gotta be rescued too. If you don't know where the enemy is in relation to yourself, you're gonna get killed very, very easily. Don't move without cover fire. That should be without saying. But as I say, movement without cover fire is death. and cover fire without movement is a waste of ammunition. Know what you're shooting at before you pull the trigger. That's a big one. At this event, the supply chain was very, very poor. From my experience and from what other people have said, so ammo was often very scarce, and the preservation of ammo was very crucial. Don't expect to be able to resupply at any time you need to. Oftentimes the ammo that you took from one resupply point is going to have to last you at least 3 or 4 engagements. You might not even get back to your PB before you are finished with more than 2 engagements. Alright, another lesson learned is always find good cover and concealment when taking a defensive position, especially by yourself. Guarding a road without backup, do not stand out in the open. This is something that I did, and I'm an idiot for it. But there's also, terrible communication. What happened is me and another guy were guarding a road. We were supposed to get other guys to stage their rucks up in the trees to set up an ambush position. And we were told to post up there and wait for the other guys to come down. Well, they never came down. And what happened is we're standing out in the open like a bunch of just clueless border guards, papers please kind of thing, guarding the road just like this, standing out in the open. When the NATO patrol came up, when the NATO buggy comes up to us, we're at no position in which we can retreat or run into concealment or cover because we're already in the middle of the road. So they can see us, they can follow us. Always be at a position in which you can avoid them if they're not a reasonable force to deal with. Break contact if you can, and have that contact already broken if possible. Stay under good cover, good concealment, so that kind of stuff does not happen. As I said, don't take on forces you can't handle, especially when backup isn't available, or it's very far away, it's hard to access. It might jeopardize your concealed location of your PB. It might jeopardize the plans your leaders might have, possible assaults in the future. So it's not a smart idea. Don't try to do any sort of last man stand, Fury style movie kind of things unless you have permission and it's specifically planned for with your higher ups. So there's a lot more that I could list. There's tons of things I learned, very physically demanding on my body. I could keep going and going just with stories and things like that from the event. It was amazing. I highly recommend it. Try to go to one in the future if you're into airsoft and things like that. Very great experience. You learn a lot of stuff if you haven't already. But I'm going to stop here to try and keep the video short. So I'm sure a lot of these things are going to be different for everybody, but this is kind of my 2 cents on the matter. Somebody who's hoping to get into a Milsim West event, I'm hoping that this video provides some sort of insight on questions that people don't answer online very frequently. Niche questions and things that they're there, but nobody's going to answer them in your, popular Milsim West packing tutorial or things like that. They don't answer these kinds of questions. So if you like this kind of stuff, I don't know, consider subscribing. That's what it says here on the paper I wrote up. Maybe even like my video. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. I could give less than 2 shits. However, it does help spread the video around and spread the message to other people who might want to see it. So that I can't appreciate that. So spread the message. Keep gooning. Shit, that's already been taken, hasn't it? I don't know. I'll come up with an intro later. Hold on. I'm gonna have to rehearse this. Hey guys, Cheap Kit.